Rusty Quill presents the Magnus Archives.
It's time for episode numero tres. Yeah. Numero tres, or tre, if it's French, I'm learning. Of Magnus Archives. As per usual, I have this little written thing that I will show up next to me. But let's talk about the episode, the title, kind of the basics like we've been doing. So basically, Amy Patel is a woman who is a student. She met Graham through doing a crime course together, which honestly, girl, I get it. I'm a crime student. I get it. And basically Graham is this, like, he has brown colored hair. He, I think he's a bit short too. No, just short, cut brown hair. And one very important note, he's gay. So Graham is the type of person where during lectures, he would a lot of the times just scribble stuff in his notebooks, and Amy always thought, oh, like maybe he's taking notes, like maybe I can get some notes from him. So one day she was absent and she asked him for his notes, and he was like, notes? I don't take notes. And she was just like, well, then what are you writing down in your little notebook? Like, huh? And so it's very well known as we get to know Graham through Amy that Graham is a chain smoker. And this is a really important thing to note too. So 4 months later, Graham takes a bus with Amy Patel, and Amy Patel notices Graham, but Graham doesn't notice her. Graham is looking very paranoid. He's looking scared. He has like really heavy breathing, and at first, Amy was just watching him, being like, what's going on? Like, I'm just gonna watch from afar. I don't know if I should approach. She decides to finally approach, and immediately Graham sees her and he goes, whew, like he's fine now. Like, he's so okay now. So then this is kind of where Graham decides to call an ambulance, which, very good on you, Graham. You know what to do. And so the ambulance came, told her to be careful. She has a concussion. It's not too bad, but she does have a concussion, but she cannot be alone. So then that's when Graham decided, hey, why don't you just recover at my place? And so they both know that it's a bit weird. They're like accepting the fact that it's a bit weird. But then that's when we kind of start to understand things that are a little bit weirder, such as Graham lives right across the street from her. That's the really crazy part. They go into his apartment. He has rows and rows and rows of notebooks covering his entire walls. Now, these aren't books. These are just notebooks, journals. And this is also when we learn that Graham's parents did die, so that's how he inherited the apartment. He also got a hypnotic table, which is very important to note. This table he got at a garage sale, but it looks very hypnotic. It has beautiful design. It has a small hole in the middle, like something is supposed to go in that hole. That is very, very important to note and to remember. But of course, since we're getting into the little deep ends of it, I am going to start marking down some of the things that we should note and should not for these episodes. So then, she goes home because she's feeling a little bit better. She doesn't want to stay there anymore because she thought it was a little bit creepy. And then she goes into her apartment, makes sure that Graham can't see her. A few days later, she notices that she can see Graham's window from her window. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. We should not be taking the victim side every single time. This is when Amy turns into a stalker. A literal stalker. Like, fucking stalker behavior type of shit. Amy would turn off the light so that way Graham did not see her, and she would just start watching him for days and days and days on end, unless she had more important things to do than stalking the guy. But in her free time, she would just sit and stalk the guy. It's weird. She is a creep. She is a stalker. Anyway, she noticed a few of his behaviors because, stalkers do that when watching you in the window. And she realized that he kept reordering all his notebooks that were on his bookshelf. So he would literally reorder by grabbing a random book, scribbling something in the book, putting it back on the shelf in a different place. Sometimes he would tear out pages and eat them. Yes, he would tear out pages, literal pages of paper, and put them in his mouth and eat them. Now, this took him 2 to 3 hours to eat every single page, but besides eating the pages, he would order takeout nearly every day. Like, this man never cooked for himself. And I don't know how digesting paper would go in the real world. I think that that's very bad for you, and that's disgusting. Ugh. But he was always on edge. He was flinching, looking out the window every single time there was a noise outside. Sometimes he just sat down on his couch. He didn't really have a TV, so the couch was literally facing towards not only the table, but the bookshelves. And so he would sit on this couch and smoke, just staring at the table. Then he would sometimes stare at the table, then reorder takeaways or something, but he would just stare at the fucking table. Of course, Amy would avoid him because she's saying all of these different behaviors, so she doesn't want to interact with him, which honestly Graham shouldn't want to interact with her either, because she's a fucking stalker. I'm just gonna keep saying that over and over again this episode. But then this is when we get to talk about April 7th. So on April 7th, she saw that Graham's light was on, so she decided to resume her stalker behaviors. This time she saw at least what she thought was pipes on the side of his window, which she didn't remember them being there because she's been stalking him so long that she memorized what the outside of his window looks like. But she realized that it was actually long, thin arms that were bending. It wasn't even arms at some point. It ended up becoming joints or something, but it kept bending and moving up into the window. And it seemed to shift, pulling itself into Graham's apartment, which is very fucking creepy. I don't know why she didn't call as soon as she started saying a weird creature thing walk into the fucking thingy. But then, as soon as it got into the window, that's when the light shut off. Now, after this, after the police left, Graham literally walked to the side where his window was and literally stared right back at her. Which, honestly, she deserves, because stop looking in people's fucking windows, mind your business. But, he literally stared back at her and started watching her on a daily basis, giving her a taste of her own medicine. And then, that's when, he started taking out these garbage bags that we later find out is just full of Graham's books. And they're garbage bags and garbage bags and garbage bags of these books. Now, finally, we get to the point where Graham is not the same person online either, because Amy does really deep research into seeing where did the old Graham go, where's the pictures of Graham, and everywhere online, it's just a new guy. It's not the old guy, it's just a new guy now. Now we reach the kind of end of her statement where she talks about how Graham and her finally have a conversation outside. She was trying to avoid him, but Graham really wanted to speak to her. We're not talking about old Graham, new Graham. And so I put down a quote in my notes because I was like, this sounds so fucking creepy. He said, "Isn't it funny, Amy, how someone lives so near and never noticed? I'll need to return the visit someday." And a week after Graham said that, Amy moved, which is understandable.